I am your host, Ali Bokhari, and I have the privilege of leading managed services at Guidehouse. I'm delighted to be here. I am accompanied by a couple of my colleagues today, Stuart Brown, who leads technology at Guidehouse, and Vinay Singh, who is our leader for technology and managed services in our centers in India. Welcome, Stu, and welcome, Vinay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And we're here to discuss and offer a fresh perspective on where we see managed services going and how leaders can stay ahead. And we'll share some insights into the managed services guide, which we published a few days ago. Stu and Vinay, we've seen a lot of shifts in the landscape of managed services over the past, few years, and really many fueled by AI and perhaps specifically generative AI. It's really redefining the structure, the roles, the responsibilities, the value proposition, the commercial constructs of how managed services are being contracted and delivered. It's pushing, work from the back office to the front office, and it's really challenging us to think differently about, how we want to deliver and think about managed services. And it's impacting both service providers like Guidehouse and our clients as well. Stu, let me start with you. What are some of the changes that you have seen in the landscape, and specifically with the lens of how technology is impacting some of those changes? Would be very interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, Ali, it's been an interesting journey, and as you know, I have a history in running managed services in the past, and it's interesting to see the shift go from pure human-based work to, it went down a path of going to, there's a tasks-based side, which really sort of became an RPA type of world. And there was sort of a brain-based world, which was the promise of AI, which was really, just an enhanced automation. But now that we're in the world of really moving aggressively into an agentic world, and development is moving so quickly, what we're seeing is the additive context nature of how to look at managed service and understanding nuance and context of the interaction and being able to react regardless of how the channel comes in. And I think that's the really big thing, is really, and it's something, we work on very heavily here, is how do we ensure that we are, there's one thing about having a structure and a path of how to answer a question or how to deal with a process. That's really process mapping and glorified AI and whatever. But when it comes down to how we as a company, as our clients, how they want to deliver their services to their clients, with agentic and with generative AI, we're able to deliver not just consistent service, but more importantly, consistent service in the manner that the company wants to deliver high level across the board, regardless of skill level of the individual and or the interaction. I think that's the real big change, is that it's how do I make sure that when I'm interacting with my customers or my employees or the businesses I work with, that it's not just a consistent interaction, but it is the best quality interaction with the right answer first time, leveraging all the data within my organization. So for me, the promise of where agentic is going and what we're starting to see is the intelligence organization elevated to either the human agent and or the digital agent to help answer that question real time. And in the past, we would have had to, for lack of a better term, code that in or had scripts and or process flows for that. Now we're able to unlock that intelligence for the agent and or for the human or the digital agent to really answer that question. And I think that's the promise of not only what we're starting to see in early stages, but where I think it's going to go. And I think it only gets better from there as companies look to, as we help them, obviously on my technology side, helping them understand how to unlock the intelligence that sits in their organizations within the data.
You, Stu. I mean, you touched on a couple of really interesting things. You mentioned consistent sort of performance and expectations that the clients are having, and sort of a higher level quality expectation that clients have. This sort of also underscores another shift we're seeing, which is towards specialization, right? Because you don't get consistency, predictability, quality, and a higher level outcome and output without some degree of specialization. Vinay, I'm very interested in your thoughts on how you're seeing specialization play out, not just from an organizational and career management perspective for our people, but also how is that playing out for our clients? How are they seeing that?
Thanks, Ali. Definitely, there is a big shift in how to train or retrain the workforce given the new AI context, right? Um, I think across the board, the clients and including the managed service providers, they are shifting from the roles to build more skill-based resources. So the focus is moving from, oh, this is the role you play versus, no, this is the skill you need to have. And this is exactly what the future is going to look like. The organization org chart, right? It's not going to look the typical hierarchy org chart. It is going to look like a skill cloud. And that skill cloud will have human along with the AI bots or agentic AI embedded in it. And that is how it's going to work seamlessly for some of the values that Stuart described that the clients are expecting. Um, So we talked about skill development, right? But it's also important, what do you do with your existing people that you have? So it's all about investing in reskilling versus just recruiting. It's very easy to say, hey, I need this person with this skill, let me go and recruit. That can only work for some time, but not forever. The organization, the client included, right? They have to reskill their people. Building the AI fluency internally in your team and across the organization is going to be the key. And last but not least, right? AI is real. Um, and it is very, very disruptive as compared to all the other technology nuances that we have seen in the last 2, 3 decades. Building the AI fluency everywhere is going to be the key to success. Every employee needs to have a basic understanding of AI and then continue to build knowledge over time on top of the basic ones, like how to do a good prompt, how to critique, and how to collaborate with different AI tools that exist, and many more to come in the future. So these are some of the things I feel from my perspective, both the client and the service providers need to focus on.
It seems like the experience of the employee has gone from executing some repetitive tasks to doing higher order, value added functions. What is the, from an employee experience perspective, do you see a higher level of engagement in people where, you are in that digital human org and are performing a different type of function than you were before?
Yes, there are. I see it every day, Ali, in our current operations, and also talk to our colleagues in the industry. They see that in their workplace as well, and the type of work they are delivering. Um, Across the board, the employees, whether it's client or a service provider, they are very thrilled about adoption of AI and how it is making their life easier in every aspect. I can give some example. There are a lot of work in managed services where people have to make calls, call to the insurance company, call to the customer. And at certain times, there are a lot of hold in the call. They have to wait. And typically, these resources are in Asia where they follow the sun model and working in the night shift. So just imagine the resources the company spend, someone calling, someone who is working in the night shift, and they are put on hold for 1 hour, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, right? It's pretty common when they are calling the insurance companies. And so there are a lot of voice AI bots and even agentic AI has been embedded now that are coming up, which is making the life of these callers easier. If the call is on wait, they are transitioned into someone to the next case they need to work on. And when the actual person is back, they route the call back to them. So this is actually helping them a lot. Um, Again, from human perspective, nobody has mastered it yet, but when more and more calls are going to be managed by voice AI, it will remove the requirement of people working in night shift, even in Asia. And that is going to go a long way with attrition management and employee well-being. So these are trends that I just gave you an example. There are many more, but this is definitely getting visibility with employees.
Thank you, Vinay. Very, very insightful. Stu, I just want to turn it over to you. You know, we've talked about a higher quality of experience for clients. How is that translating into more value that our clients are seeing, you know, relative to, and how we're measuring that value relative to how we used to do it in the past?
Well, I think it's a frankly welcome and needed shift in the way the interactions work, right? I think we've always wanted to talk about value as an end result of what we do. It's always been tricky in the past because in the past managed service deals always really led on cost savings as the driver. And then while that is a quote unquote value driver, it's not a value driver to the business. It's a value driver to the CFO office, right? And I think, what it allows us to do is contract in a different way, show value in a different way, and deliver a better experience at the end result. I mean, if I'm a business buyer of managed service, I don't get, while cost is an important metric, I have a budget. My bonus isn't built off of that. My bonus is built off of serving the customers and what those KPIs and metrics look like. This allows us to align very heavily towards that model and actually sign up for that same outcome, right? And I think that's, we would do that in the past to some degree, but it was, you didn't have all the data you needed or all the right information to really do that. You were sort of pulling it together with different parts and pieces. Here we have all the Lego blocks sitting within the organization to allow us to not only deliver at a value that aligns with executives' goals and with the customers or the employees' goals, but more importantly, it allows us to iterate that value lever, either shift right the number we can go after or shift left the time it takes to achieve that value. So I think as we look at, going forward, it allows us to put more incentive metrics into the contracts, because we can say, hey, we believe we can move it another point or two. And if we do that, we can encourage it. And back to where Vinay was going on the people and how they work, right? Nobody likes to do task-based work. I don't care where you live, what you do, or how you do it. No one wants to do repetitive stuff. It's not fun. It's not great for a customer engagement. It's not great for anybody, right? It's not great for the customer you're serving. So what we want to also do is, and this is what we're obviously very focused on, is encouraging our employees to iterate and drive more value to the end customer, which makes their lives. We want to reward them for automating and doing their job faster and better. And I think for me, that's key, is like aligning to the value, measuring on the value, reporting on the value that really is the end, the customer's end use. And the cool thing about agentic in other ways is there's a lot of cool ways to measure that sentiment. If you're on a call, you can measure real-time sentiment analysis now through AI, because it can listen and it can see that, the call started out and the customer, the employee, the agency we were talking to, the physician's office started out combative or not happy or inquisitive or questioning, and at the end came away happy. In the past, we used to have to rely on someone taking a survey for that or whatever. We can see the interaction there, and we can give coaching on that interaction. And actually, not just coaching post-call, but coaching in call because of real-time voice transcription. So for me, that's the value can get measured in a lot of different ways. And the technology now can really help us pinpoint where we should focus and also be able to show us measures that we just didn't have before unless we had people give us their feedback. But as you know, that's a spotty game, just like polling. You don't know who's going to be taking the poll, right?
Right. Thank you. Vinay, you mentioned earlier, global delivery and people in different parts of the world. Are we thinking about location strategy differently with the advent of AI? What are some of the trends that you're observing in terms of how organizations should prioritize, where work gets delivered from and what criteria they should use to evaluate.
Um, this is something that the clients continue to figure out, and even the managed service providers are being very creative to even recommend something on location strategy differently to the same clients or new clients. Um, I would say, and I am this is part of the managed services guide because I really liked it. The location these days is by design, not by default. And by that, I mean, Stu and I have worked many decades together. In the early 2000s, the default was send it to India or send it to any other country in Asia. And without realizing whether it's going to deliver value, it was more about time and material or just labor arbitrage for that matter. Okay. Um, COVID taught us lot of great things, though it was not good for people, but it really taught us from business perspective that we could do things remotely. Not everybody has to come to office. But now we are in a post-COVID era, and there are so many regulations and rules and compliance requirements that keep changing in our clients' business globally that is warranting people to come back to work, return to work to office. And then the client, like I said, the client business scenarios continue to change. There is so much of sensitivity in the data these days that can only be done in near shore or in the country, or that cannot go, can be outside of the, say, US for that example, and Europe likewise. So the current location strategy that I'm seeing and we are also proposing to our client is a mixed bag. It's not just all in Asia. There are work that are being done within the US in other hubs that are not as expensive as, say, places like New York or Washington, D.C., where the client sits, right? It gives you the confidence about the sensitivity of the data management. And from cost perspective, because we are leveraging technology and AI a lot more, we do not need the same number of resources that you would have needed in the absence of them. So there is a cost savings there as well. And then a lot of our clients have global operations, so there are a lot of linguistic requirements where those skills have been built in Asia, in other countries, but then people are also going to have the same time zone and the linguistic approach even to Latin America. So that is another part of the big model. And of course, regardless of what location you take, right, the delivery methods, including the AI, the transparency of the data, etc., is important. So all of them are being put together in a global delivery model now. And so there is no cookie cutter answer for location, Ali. It totally depends on what type of work, what sensitivity exists. Is the client just in one country versus multiple countries? And then some of the unique requirements, especially in the financial services clients, where they do the same work, but across 3 locations: US, Europe, India. It is because of what type of data within their data pool they want to manage within Lithuania or Europe versus India versus US, right? So that also comes into play when we are deciding on a larger location strategy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight. Let's move to the next slide, please, and let's touch on some misconceptions that are out there right now. Which of the outdated misconceptions, Stu? Let me start with you. That you wish organizations got rid of.
Oh, I mean, all of them. But I think the one for me, it's only for back office work is the one that just reaches out to me. I mean, all of them are missed. But I think this is where I think that may have been true 15 years ago, 10 years ago, right? I think back to the value conversation, back to the location conversation Vinay was just having. I want to get the best talent I can find to drive the value I need, regardless of location. And I obviously want to do that as cost effectively as possible, but also it's not about just cost effective. It's talent. It's a mathematical equation of talent over cost. right? And if the talent isn't good enough, then the cost doesn't matter because it's not going to be more cost effective. And that's what we saw with just pure labor arbitrage. In some cases, it wasn't better, or it was better for the bottom line, but it wasn't better for the customer or the employee or whomever we're interacting with. So for me, that it's only for back office work. I think that's the one where, we're starting to see a shift to complete lines of business being done in locations because it makes more sense, because that's where the talent is. We see that with engineering, some of the medical staff and other, where frankly, there's just there's not a quantity available in certain locations to be able to serve the needs of the market. And so for me, that's a big one, right? I think as we moved away from the P times Q model of butts and seats to an RPA type of model, which was you take my process and do it cheaper, to a value-based model, I think we need to unlock the art of the possible here. And I think a lot of big corporations have done that with their own captives. And I think that's what we try to bring to companies as well, is how can we bring that kind of value to them in areas that are really complex, like revenue cycle management or financial fraud management. These are not booking a flight, right? These are complex things that require a lot of intelligence, a lot of value. And so for me, that's the one. It just screams out to me on the page, because I think that's the big shift we're going to see, and I think agentic's going to have a big piece of that as well.
Thank you, Stu. Vinay, anything jump out for you?
Yeah, my favorite one, and actually it's the favorite one across the globe. It replaces job. Of course it does, right? We all need to remember and realize, as human being, we constantly evolving, and in our minds too. With technology development, we continue to learn. So I think most of the roles are evolving into a higher order work, where the people who are doing the task-based job, right, that Stuart talked about a few minutes back, they are all going to be done by agentic AI or others. Even some of the decision making in the workflow can be done by them. So it is all about learning, reskilling, and then doing higher order job. What AI is not going to replace is the leadership, is the analytical mind of real human to interpret the data and again tell the AI bot to get better, because that is the constant learning that we apply to the model. So this is it. Yes, it is replacing job, but then as the workers go and reskill, they do have another job which is higher level job, and that is the shift we are going to see.
It's really not binary, the human job gets replaced by a bot. It's more along the lines of the pie is getting bigger, right?
Yes.
And there are other things, bigger things to tackle, which is kind of the shift what we're seeing. Let's move on to the next slide, please. I want to get into the meat of the intelligent operations model, because this really underpins what we're talking about, and how, Stu, what you and Vinay have been talking about sort of comes to life in the new model. And we've really outlined four, different components to the model, right? Data, process, platforms, and the org itself. Stu, I'm very interested in your perspective, particularly on the data and platform side of things, and really what's going into those components that make it so foundational for the model for intelligent operations.
Yeah, I mean, number one is the data is the blood of an organization, right? And in the past, and it's so much more important than we ever thought, right? And we used data like it was a warehouse, right? We would talk about data warehouses and data lakes and these things that we would go and fish in, or we would go retrieve something from a box like it was like an Amazon warehouse. It's not. It's the blood of the organization. It's the intelligence. It's how we operate. It's how we perform. It's the value of an organization. This is what generative AI unlocks, right? It unlocks the ability to take a leverage of the DNA that flows through the blood of our organization and how we can unlock it. And I think the important part of intelligent operations is how can a company, and this is what Guidehouse builds our managed service and technology business around, how do we help you unlock that to not just do it cheaper, but to do it as you would do it in better, like drive value. And this is, when I talk to C-suites and others around the technology side, I talk about data. And sometimes I'll have a CEO tell me, well, my CIO is telling me that our we don't have quality data, so we can't leverage this. I'm like, great. So you're making decisions with bad data today. You just don't know it because it's sitting in a silo or sitting on a shelf, right? The bad data is still there. Like just because how do you bring that data out and expose it to the generative part of your organization, which is the humans, to be able to determine how you should adapt. So for me, the data is the most important part of an intelligent operations. It is a part of your operations today. To make it more intelligent, we then need to move to the platform view, which is how do we take that data and how do we build across our organization to think through how we get the best of the data no matter where it sits. In the past, we would have taken that data, copied data from everywhere, put it all in one big data lake or warehouse, and pull from that data. The problem with that is you get a couple of things. It's expensive to do that. It's not always real time. It's not efficient. And it's not intelligent, right? It just sits in this warehouse and waiting to be retrieved. And this is where I think platforms are important. And there's a term that Microsoft uses for their data platform, and I like the term, so I'll use it. It's called the data fabric. I want to leave the data in situ in an organization and put a fabric around all of my applications and my people that when something comes in on one side of an organization, a question, a query, or whatever, it vibrates that fabric and knows based on how we operate our organization where I should go get the answer to that question, to give the human, the agent, the customer, the best information they can have to answer that question. That's why I like the term data fabric, because I view it as this sort of sinew layer that vibrates when a question comes in. The platforms you pick are really important. And what we're trying to do is say, as we approach this with clients, how do we bring that platform approach? It not only answers the question you're asking us to come in and help with, but answers broader questions for you as you move forward as an organization. So for me, if you look at the development that's happening right now in the platform space, what any of the big hyperscalers, NVIDIA, OpenAI, Microsoft, Amazon, go down the list, the development happening there is unbelievably bigger than anything that happened with the internet age. And it's all around data. And so those two things together and having a strong strategy on that are important. But you do not want to get wrapped around the axle of building new data warehouses. And you want to leave data in situ. The more you move it, the more diluted it gets, the more it gets away from the intelligence layer it sits in. I have this application with this data because it provides this service. I have this application with this data that provides this service. A human would know what system I need to go to get that information. I want the intelligence to know that as well, right? I know if I need to go get this, I go to this system and I ask a question, but then it comes back and like, that doesn't seem right. Okay, well, I need to go check over here because that data doesn't seem right. So that's where I think the play, Ali, between the data and the insights is key here, because the insights might not always be right. Right? You can't assume it's always going to be correct. So how does the intelligence, human and or digital, know to go, I now need to go find clarifying information because this doesn't seem right. That's, to me, when I sit in front of C-suites and others, I say that's the generative part of generative AI, right? It's that intelligent understanding of the information and the data in the context of how it's being received. So for me, those two things are really important. And what we say when we come to clients is, we're going to bring that thought approach. That's part of our intelligent operations approach. It's not just managed service or tech. It's an intelligent operations that actually can think. And that's the construct we want to bring to them. And we can help them on both sides of that equation.
Getting to that model, then leveraging the data that already exists within the organization, it could actually be done pretty quickly, right? If we're applying the right agentic approach to it, it's not about what you're saying is it's not about re-architecting the entire data layer, right? It's making
That's
sure
correct.
the agent knows where to go.
That's correct. I think that the only trickiness that comes in the data is you do have to ensure that the data that you inject into the intelligence layer is tagged correctly from a security. In other words, like you don't want certain data, especially with some of the data we deal with. You want to make sure that it's been categorized correctly. That's the one important piece I would say here. So if there's any data scientists or data people on the call, they're going to be probably screaming into their PCs right now. And I think the answer is yes, we need to do that. And I think that's the thing. Once you do that, you can start unlocking the data, and then the better and more refined you can make that, the better. But yeah, I think that's the important piece, right?
You, Vinay, we've heard from Stu about, hey, what does it take to get the data and the platform ready? How do you think about that from a human and a process perspective as we're deploying, an agentic model into the managed services? What are some of the readiness items that we have to go through in order to accomplish that?
So the first one that comes to my mind is skilling of the people who are going to play a role in this model. They are more AI aware, trained, and learning. They are very skilled in prompting the model, understanding the data that comes out from the AI model, and what to do. The other aspect would be to really look at the org, to be honest, and setting up the right org, which is embedded with technology. Like I said, Skill Cloud is very key for intelligent operations. That would actually complement the data and the platform points that Stuart talked about.
Thank you. I want to move ahead and really just take a pulse check with the audience as to what is driving and putting the most pressure on the organization from your perspective. I'm very interested in just a quick audience pulse check. So if you can take a moment and just respond to the poll question, we'd appreciate it. Team, are we getting some responses?
Yes, Ali. 5 more seconds and I'll show the results.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one, yeah.
Is there an all the above? We should have done all the above. That would have been.
It's interesting that talent shortages and are top of the list so far. That is clearly an issue across the board that's driving the adoption, and goes without saying cost pressures are also very much there. Stu, Vinay, anything stand out to you in the data? Is this in line with what you would have expected from a poll?
I think it's in line with what I expected. I think back to the value piece. I think, and I don't view, and I think this is where we talked about sort of type of work is done where, right? Vinay, and location. I think talent shortage comes down to we do have a talent shortage as I think intelligent operations, as managed service becomes much more concentrated on the value side of the equation. It becomes more difficult to find enough people that know how to do it, and I think that's the tricky part. And then organizations like ours, I think, Ali, that are training and hiring and spending time to build these skills become more important to help customers fill that need, right? Because it's becoming more and more difficult to hire and scale talent. It's just not as simple as it used to be. That's what I would take. So I think it makes sense, and obviously that does lead to cost, and automation is an offshoot of that. I think I'd like to see customer experience expectations be the bigger one, right? And I think it is. But I think the people on the call obviously feel like the questions they get asked every day are among the top ones. But if you can get both, you can solve talent shortages and cost pressures and increase customer expectation, boy, that's the holy grail. And that's what intelligent operations is all about.
It's the holy grail. Thank you, Stu. Let's move on to the next slide, please. We've touched on it through the conversation, Stu and Vinay. You've kind of given glimpses of examples of different industries, different processes and use cases where you've seen some deployment of intelligent operations taking hold. Can you share some examples of value delivered and maybe a use case or two of where you're seeing this at work?
Gosh, when you ask a question like that, we see it every day. It's very difficult to pick one. We do a lot of health revenue cycle management operations for our clients. And recently we built in a new tool, which is more AI-based, where the work comes for the operators in queues, and they don't know which one to work, which is high value versus low value, which is aging versus non-aging. And so there is some rational and logic built in your manual workflow. But what this tool is doing is doing some predictive analysis. It is looking at all the queues and all the cases. It has the intelligence in the background about some of the payers who are very good with paying quickly and at what duration. And then they also have the knowledge about no matter what you do, it will take 90 days to get payment from some of these payers. So now, since this is like a layer built on top of the queues, it is parsing the data and doing a predictive analysis. And basically the result in terms of a data set is that these are your top 20 to work on today. And so you have a better chance of getting a success very quickly if you work on these 50 first versus the last 50. So that is a very good example where I see, to your point, Ali, is actually not only helping the operations team, but when you get the money into the door, the client is also happy because it's a revenue realized sooner than later.
Thank you. Great example. Stu, anything that comes to mind for you that you're seeing out there that's happening?
I think for me, I mean, you guys are more at the tip of the sphere on what we're doing around the pure managed service, but I think it's just, for me, it's leveraging. I think every day our AI Studio team is working with you guys around building out some new use cases to bring more intelligence and information to our employees and as a result to our clients' realization of value. So, whether it starts with OCR and reading documents, and reading things like doctors' handwritings and other things which are not easy to getting to the intent of a call and getting the intent of information. For me, the power of results is just seeing the rapid ability to drive more value on a day-to-day basis, and then the ideas and the use cases that our teams are bringing to us to try to make our clients' business more efficient. Right, that's the part for me. I could go do a ton of examples of different agents we're looking at and what we're using and what we're building. I think for me, it's the quick, rapid adoption. We used to talk about in the agile days or the early days, when we were moving from client server to cloud or to on-prem to cloud. We used to talk about fast to succeed, fast to fail models. I only really now see fast to succeed models. Right? I mean, the cool thing is we can test something quick. It used to take us a lot of money and a lot of time. And so for me, the results of applying something in parallel to see if it drives the value and then quickly adopting it without a huge lift is the piece that, so whether we're talking about revenue cycle management, which is obviously critical for hospitals to be able to operate. And if you look at the margins they're operating under, while our healthcare costs are not trivial, the cost to operate healthcare is non-trivial as well. And I think the ability to bring money in faster, the ability to help get to the answer faster. I think financial fraud and risk management, helping our financial customers deal with that. We see all the fraud flying around and everything else, and being able to help deal with that. There's so many great examples where, we're moving the needle every day. I always talk to my team about, we're always on offense. Gain a yard, gain an inch, try to get the next first down, move ahead. Sometimes you get hit for the 5-yard penalty, and then now we got to get first and 15, and we do it. It seems to me that the mindset is there, and it's always on results. I think that's the key thing, right? And so for me, I'm seeing it. It's hard to articulate one vision, Ali. It's just you feel the momentum shift in how the thinking is done, and it shows up maybe more incrementally day to day than a big bang would be but that you feel it, right? And that's the thing to me.
Palpable. Each and every day there's something new that's coming along. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the next slide. What I would request is, from the audience, if you can share your thoughts in the chat. We'd be very interested in what other areas that you're seeing that AI is being considered or being put in use. Let's move on to the next slide, please. And we'll just wrap up our topics with what's next. And in the guide, we've kind of laid out kind of a futuristic vision of how we see managed services evolve. Can you move to the next slide, please? And what are some of the trends that we want to talk about? And Vinay, you touched on digital workers and org charts, right? Going forward. Stu or Vinay, any other trends here that really jump out at you that we haven't touched on yet?
I think Stu also touched upon expansion into front office domains, right? It is not just a back office operations. We are doing a lot of onboarding, initial training, taking calls, making calls, right? So those are front office jobs as well. Stuart did talk about the decision making about agentic AI in the operations that makes it intelligent. I think the fourth one is something where we did not dwell a lot, but this is very important for at least the MSPs and also for our clients, right? So the pricing models are ever evolving, even for the managed services type of work, which was called outsourcing, the BPO operations or application support, infrastructure support. Um, the the model it continues to evolve, right? So first it was time and material at a lower cost for labor arbitrage. Then it became SLA driven outcome based model, right? A lot we did that a lot, likely a decade back. And then now it is all becoming exactly about how are you going to price your deals with AI because it's not a human. So this is exactly what Stuart was talking about when he called upon value, which is very important. And so there is nothing set in stone. There is no like a directory exactly. This is how you define value. Everybody is trying to add weight to the outcomes that actually the team delivers for the client, right? And their expectation. So I've also seen models, Ali, where for large managed services operations work, where the client is also willing to invest in the model. And some of them are asking the MSPs to actually go in a build, operate, and transfer model and help build, because of their knowledge, their own GCCs, which is Global Capability Center. So you please help me set up my GCC in a right location. You run it for some time, you hire people, and then you transfer it to me, and we will co-invest, and then we'll make you whole with some profit at the end. This is also a type of work that is evolving a lot these days.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. One thing I want to touch on number one real quick, and I know we want to get to the questions and a couple other things, so I want to make sure we get to folks' questions. I think number one is important, right? I think, I've been talking about this for a couple of years now with leadership and others, and you need to start thinking about digital workers as workers. You need to start thinking about them. They very similar. You're going to rate them as you rate humans. You're going to promote them as you promote humans. And I know that sounds really weird, but the reality is some agents will be better than others, and that agent you want the others to learn off of, just like you do in the real world. This is how we look at it, right? We're going to be looking at the agentic models we build, which ones are learning faster, which ones know better, and then we'll point the other agents to that agent to learn. There will be a hierarchy very similar to HR, and you're going to think about it as human employees. It sounds weird, I know, but you will, and it's going to become very normal in about 2 to 3 years. So stop there.
Thank you.
I don't want them rating me, by the way. I was going to point out.
We are not allowing that here, Stu.
Good. Good.
So let's move on to the next poll, and while they bring up the poll, I also want to start to look through the questions, and there's been a lot of questions that have come in. So please take a couple of seconds to respond to this poll, and then we'll go into questions.
Lots of good questions, by the way.
Yeah, there are.
I don't know. I don't know if the anonymous ones are bots. We'll see. We'll find out.
That'll be useful to know.
What happens when the bots start chatting in the OpenAI in the chats and start asking when are the bots going to get vacations? Oh, look at that. Okay. Yep. Good.
This is along the lines of what you were just talking about. So I'm going to just cherry pick a few questions and, no particular order. There's one here about how can companies ensure strong governance and transparency when embedding AI into managed services delivery. I'm interested, I don't know, Vinay or Stu, if you have a perspective on transparency and governance for this.
Well, I think it starts with transparency and governance. I know that sounds like I'm answering the question with the question, but it does come down to back to my point earlier. You need to think about this as human workers, and you need to think about this how you structure it. And I think it's got to be an open model because it is it's critical that everybody knows how things are being done. So for me, it is bringing a joint governance model that is known to everyone and is measured the same way you measure others. And so for me, it really comes down to an open, not dissimilar model to what we do with our standard operating model. That's my take.
Agree.
Sorry, that wasn't probably as insightful as you were looking for.
No, that's perfect. There's one question, Stu, that's actually directed to you. So it says you mentioned captive organizations. Can you tell us a little bit about what challenges organizations are having with including AI in their captive organizations and how Guidehouse or other managed services providers can help overcome them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think Vinay sort of touched on this when he talked about us helping build some of those out. I think it comes down to, look, AI in organizations at scale is thinks about AI holistically as an enterprise, and you got to think about the different things you're trying to solve. And so the question becomes, like, sometimes driving those businesses, the nice thing about companies like ours that are doing this for a living, it's like, is that this is what we do. So we're building models with the big partners to be able to drive efficiency and value. So what I would say is, don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself. Right now, we can help you invent the wheel if it hasn't been invented. But if we've already got a process to help with rev cycle management or financial fraud or whatever, our ability to come in and help you accelerate that value proposition and help you train and get your team up and running should be helpful. I think, there's two ways to that. One, if you're trying to tell the story of why we should do it, we can come help tell that story to your executives and your business and others to say, look, here's the proof case that we've done it, and let's put together a strategy how this will work for you based on your input parameters. Every company is going to be a little different, but the value case for that type of work should be the same. I think too many people in the development world, being in the tech world now for 30 years, right? We come from a build it mentality, and the reality is, there's a lot of great development going on. We can adapt. But the important thing is to build an architecture that is fungible, because there's so much development going on that we are going to replace agents or components with new agents and components that'll do it better, faster, and cheaper. I keep moving around the camera. It's sort of cool. And I think, what I would say is we would come in with that approach of helping you build not a solve the problem in a linear way, but solve the problem in a forward-thinking way. That's the way we think about it as a managed service provider. That's the way you should think about it as well. So we would bring that intelligence to you to say, let's build something that's scalable. Because if you build around a model or whether it's a large language model, whether it's an agent, whether it's whatever, and I'll use the term hard code, but if you embed it in a way that it's hard to extract, a new model is going to come out in 6 months. It'll blow that one away. Maybe cheaper on the token side, maybe better on the data side, maybe more secure, whatever. You're going to have a hard time ripping it out. You're going to go back to your value case. It's going to fall apart. So that's what I would say is, like, it's not dissimilar to what Vinay was talking about, us helping, build, operate, transform for people. It's the same concept. Don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself is what I would say. Reach out to us if it's areas that we do, or others if they're known for it, to be able to help accelerate that transition and help you tell that story and build that value case more quickly. Hopefully that answers.
And it's really all about the journey, right? And it's not the big bang of, you're in this new world tomorrow with agentic AI. There's another question here, right, which I think pulls a similar thread. What does a successful transition to intelligent operations look like in year one, right? What what should our clients expect? Is it an incremental change? Is it a big bang? Is it just the people? Do you have any perspectives on that, Vinay or Stu?
I can start and
Okay.
Stu. I think the first year it's all about setting the foundation with very clear expectation on both sides with the client and MSP. What are we trying to solve for? And what it will take to do. And in the first year, it's all about setting the foundation. By that, we mean start small, um, build the right structure that is scalable in future, that is flexible to adopt to your new business rules and needs over time. And I think that would be the key when someone is starting, in my opinion. Stuart, I'll be interested to hear yours.
Yeah, I'll be quick on it. I mean, I think, if we talk about the old days, what, 5, 10 years ago, it would have been, job shadowing and learning and bumps in the road and, whatever. And by the end of the first year, you're still trying to get some kinks out. I think number one is it's faster. I think that's one thing. It should feel more complete in intelligent operations than it did in pure process operations, right? So I'll put that out there. It should feel faster and better, but also it should feel like we've moved the ball at least a yard, when it comes to value. So I think it's actually less a measure of KPI than a feel. Like it should just feel better. And I know that sounds a little bit wishy-washy, but I honestly, we've all been through the trials and tribulations of big shifting and transforming. And I think that's the thing for me. It should feel like it really seems different, that it's understanding. That's unlocking the data, right? It should feel better, that we're getting the right answer most of the time, as opposed to dealing with exceptions, which I think is the thing that most of us used to dread when it came to transforming big operations, because you can only get so much in the transition phase. And so for me, it's around that, it's capturing the value. And hopefully for the organizations where we're doing that, if you hadn't already done it before, that then translates back into the non-managed service organization as well. So that's a big thing for me, I think, as well.
You, Stu. I'm going to make this one last question, and Vinay, I'm going to direct it to you. And the question is, given the ongoing challenges with talent shortages, rising attrition, and highly compressed marketplace for critical skills, could we explore developing an AI-driven automation tool designed to train and upskill employees in alignment with our operational needs? So really using agentic AI for training and upscaling. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a very, very good question, in my opinion. And a lot of organizations are already trying and testing this, in my opinion. Um, it is in Stuart said that way you do the job shadowing and then do the reverse job shadowing, and then you are in the assessment phase. I see that a lot of smart agentic AI bots can be built in as part of the operations itself, where you are also getting trained day in, day out on the job. Okay. It is not like the manual on the job training. It could be like while doing your work, you could be trained as well. Simple thing that comes to mind, which we are also trying to experiment, is a lot of our BPO processes are step-by-step driven, right? You do this, and then you get to a decision tree. You either go left or right, right? Oftentimes, some of these standard operating procedures, they have been written in Word document, converted into PDF, and then it is saved. We are creating something like a guided workflow where you just type in the question that here I am, I'm not sure what to do. It just pops you the answer or even takes you to the right page. So just think about it. We have come up with a concept of train 60. You train someone 60 times, then it becomes muscle memory. And it is very important, right? So just imagine this agentic AI built in along in your operations and doing that for you. It saves so much time and cost, and the human employee get better and better over time, getting the support from AI.
Training is an ongoing process. It's
Yeah.
not just trained for the job and you're done. It's ongoing evolution of the human operating at a much higher level
Right.
than we did before. Stu, Vinay, thank you very much for your insights. Really appreciate the time you took to share your thoughts with us. And for the audience, feel free to download our managed services guide, connect with the Guidehouse experts. Happy to engage, and please share your feedback. We will be sending out, the recording to you via email, so all of this will be available to you. And on behalf of Guidehouse, I really thank the audience for joining us today, and sharing your insights as well as the provocative questions that came into the chat. Thank you again, and have a great rest of the day.